Islamist extremists and far-right groups are spreading a poison. That poison is extremism. It aims to drain us of our confidence in ourselves as a people and in our shared future. They want us to doubt ourselves, to doubt each other, to doubt our country's history and achievements. They want us to accept a moral equivalence between Britain and some of the most despicable regimes in the world. They want us to believe that our country, and the West more generally, is solely responsible for the world's ills, and that we, along with our allies, are the problem. In short, they want to destroy our confidence and hopes. We must not allow that to happen. When these groups claim that Britain is and has been on the wrong side of history, we should reject it and reject it again.
And has described the pro-Palestine demonstrations as hate marches after more than 100,000 people took to UK streets over the last 3 weekends. Her comments follow an emergency Cobra meeting chaired by Rishi Sunak, where ministers met with national security officials to assess the domestic security risk after warnings from the Metropolitan Commissioner.
Well, first of all, let me explain what we've seen over the last few weekends. We've seen now tens of thousands of people take to the streets following the massacre of Jewish people, the single largest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust, chanting for the erasure of Israel from the map. To my mind, there's only one way to describe those marches. They are hate marches.
Home Secretary Suella Braverman was also in the crowd and joined in a 100-second silence.
We need to stand with Israel continually throughout this bitter and cruel and evil conflict.
Mr. Speaker, if I decide to wear a turban, or you decide to wear a cross, or he decides to wear a kippah or a skull cap, or she decides to wear a hijab or a burqa, does that mean that it is open season for right honourable members of this House to make derogatory and divisive remarks about our appearance? For those of us who from a young age have had to endure and face up to being called names such as Towelhead or Taliban or coming from Bongo land, we can appreciate full well the hurt and pain felt by already vulnerable Muslim women when they are described as looking like bank robbers and letterboxes. So rather than hide behind sham and whitewash investigations, when will the Prime Minister finally apologise for his derogatory and racist remarks?
And most interestingly, we have a growing number of young people in this country who do not subscribe to British values, in fact, loathe much of what we stand for. So what do you do?
Who are we talking about there?
Oh, I think we see them on the streets of London every Saturday.
What do they look like? Oh, we're talking about...
What do they look like?
Are we talking about Muslims here?
We are. And I'm afraid I found some of these.
Sure, you want to make the blanket accusation that you've just made that Muslims are somehow less patriotic than other British people, because those people on those demonstrations are British.
Did you watch the recent elections that took place up and down the country?
We don't know that, and we don't know they support Hamas. Would you like to revisit what you said at all?
Let's be clear. There is a growing population of people in this country.
I differentiate Muslims from Islam.
Right.
Okay?
But what you don't do...
differentiate Muslims
Muslims are people. Islam is an idea.
Yeah.
Islam's an idea. A bad idea.
And
Islam is a
Muslims
faith.
follow.
No, it's an idea.
It's a faith.
It's an idea that you can change your mind.
No, it's a faith. Like Christianity.
Like Scientology.
Like all faiths.
Like
it's a religion, it's a faith.
Like Scientology.
So, Tommy, if you accept,
it's an ideology.
If you're saying that the problem is with Islam, are you accepting that you're Islamophobic?
Because there are 100 verses in this...
Yes or no?
Okay.
Are you Islamophobic?
There's no such word as Islamophobia. Phobia is an irrational fear. It's not irrational to fear these things. Now, if I hold this book up and say, there will never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book, it's a violent and cursed book. That's wrong. Can I tell you who said that?
Well, it's pretty horrendous. The third young girl has died as a result of the stabbings yesterday in Southport. I obviously join everybody in my horror at what has happened. I know the Prime Minister went to lay flowers and was heckled, and it shows you how unhappy the public are with the state of law and order in our country. I have to say there are one or two questions. Was this guy being monitored by the security services? Some reports say he was, others less sure. The police say it's a non-terror incident. Just as they said the stabbing of an Army Lieutenant Colonel in uniform on the streets of Kent the other day was a non-terror incident. I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld from us. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it is a fair and legitimate question. What I do know is something is going horribly wrong in our once beautiful country.
It started like any normal day in the school holidays, but ended in horror and tragedy. 3 innocent young girls killed in a frenzied knife attack.
And when I went out, he's holding us like a 6-year-old girl in his arms, covered in blood, trying to save her.
Families devastated, a nation in shock, and a community in mourning.
I couldn't stop hugging it. I slept in a bed last night next to it. I couldn't stop staring at it because it's just, you expect your children to be safe.
It is hard to think of anything more innocent than a Taylor Swift dance class at a summer holiday club for 6 to 11-year-olds. But that was the target for a masked attacker with a knife.
And as people came to terms with the horrific events, disinformation spread and tensions erupted onto the streets.
They've been clashing now violently with police, throwing objects at the police, clashing with officers in riot gear. And this really is a very tense situation and an already horrendous time for Southport.
The accused, a teenager, barely more than a child himself. This is the story of how the sleepy seaside town of Southport became a scene of terror and grief, how a dance class became deadly, and how anguish turned to anger.
Applause. The vigil was over in 15 minutes, but the crowd stayed for far longer. The Reverend Rachel Bray believes the wounds on this whole community will take a long time to heal.
There won't ever be an end because yesterday will always be in the memory of this community. Something you never want your town to be famous for, is it? But it's going to be a day that is going to be in our memory now for a very, very long time.
On one of the darkest days in the history of this town, the community spirit shines. And at a time when there are just no words, the message of togetherness came through loud and clear.
But as the town united in peaceful mourning, police grew increasingly concerned about the disinformation being spread online.
There's been a false identity of the suspect circulating online. I've seen that identity and I can confirm it is absolutely wrong. Unfortunately, it's been shared millions of times and police are quite concerned now about this, the way this kind of information spreads very quickly online. And just to be clear, the only reason we aren't naming the suspect is for legal reasons. He's under the age of 18. It might be in the future that those legal restrictions are lifted, particularly if he is charged, and we are then able to talk about who the suspect is.
And police were right to be concerned, because hours later, tensions erupted onto the streets as a mob descended on the town. The large crowd were thought to be supporters of the English Defence League. Paul Brand witnessed the violence.
For the second day in a row, Southport has been under attack. Just hours after stopping the knifeman, Merseyside police faced another assault. This crowd weren't welcomed by locals. We don't know where they streamed in from, but they're believed to be supporters of the English Defence League. Just before 8 o'clock, they met outside a mosque in the town, where a few hundred people threw bricks and fireworks at the windows. The suspect behind yesterday's attack isn't known to be Muslim, but a connection was drawn nonetheless.
There are police dogs arriving now here in the centre of Southport, just up to the junction here where we've seen protesters, a crowd here throwing objects at a mosque that is just on the corner of this junction here. They've been clashing now violently with police, throwing objects at the police, clashing with officers in riot gear. And this really is a very tense situation and an already horrendous time for Southport.
At one moment, even armed police were pushed back.
3 innocent kids are dead, mate. 7, 6 and 9.
Before we decided it wasn't safe for us either. As the violence escalated, it left at least one officer with injuries. Others escaped their van being set alight. Tonight, grieving families are kept awake as helicopters circle Southport once again. Protest, disturbing what chance they had of any peace.
In fact, more than 50 police officers were injured in that night of violence. The following morning, our correspondent Stacey Foster was there as the scale of the damage became clear.
As the people of Southport woke this morning, they had to deal with the aftermath of yet another trauma. Around the corner from where children were stabbed on Monday, the mosque was a target of an attack. Inside, terrified worshippers were trapped.
You better be careful, yeah.
ITV News was invited inside by the chairman as they assessed the damage.
God, it is worse than I thought, because I couldn't see that the whole building was shaking. Actually, it was a missile that they kept throwing at the, big bricks, and we can feel the heat and the smoke coming in through the window. Nobody here can't understand why we came under this awful attack. We don't understand why, but we would like just to say that we have absolutely nothing to do with this. We was just as devastated as anybody else in the community.
Merseyside police said 53 officers were injured in the violent disorder, 8 seriously with broken bones, cuts and concussion. 3 police dogs were also injured. 4 men in their 30s have been arrested, and the chief constable has admitted she is worried it could happen again.
Please be reassured, the communities of Southport. We are absolutely planning for that. Please be reassured, the communities of Merseyside, that we are planning now for what might take place this evening and what might take place over the weekend.
Suzanne's shop was broken into and looted. She can't believe what's happening to her community.
Despair, really despair of why this is happening to us. Why do our community's already suffered this week? There's children been killed this week, stabbed to death. Why on earth? We don't deserve this as a community. Why are they doing this to us?
Oh, thank you very much.
But at times like these, the kindness of strangers is a powerful antidote. And here they have pulled together.
We've been doing lots of sweeping, picking up bricks and doing that all bit. And we've been down here for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, thank you also for
no
problem.
Liam turned up at the mosque and offered to fix the broken windows.
This mosque has been here all my life. It's what we've always known, to be a part of our community. So we just want to show our support.
Once again, they have had to pull together. And this community are determined to show that they will not be divided.
It was the middle of the night 3 days after the stabbing when police called a press conference at short notice.
The Crown Prosecution Service has authorised Merseyside Police to charge a 17-year-old boy of Banks, Lancashire, with 3 counts of murder and 10 counts of attempted murder, following the tragic incident that took place in Southport this week.